Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to our online public meeting today, which is the Thursday, the 19th of June, where we will be going through some performance data for the North Yorkshire Fire and Rescue Service, and also looking at a thematic presentation around wildfire prevention and response around wildfires in the region. Just a slight change to the running order. We're going to go through the performance section of slides, which will be presented to us by Area Manager Damien Henderson. We're then going to go straight into the inspection update, also being given by Damien Henderson, by which time we anticipate we'll have been joined by Tom Hurst, who's going to give the thematic presentation on wildfire prevention and response. So I'll just introduce the people who are on the call. So from my side of things, from the Combined Authority, we've got Tamara. Do you want to just introduce yourself?
Hello, I'm Tamara Stevens, and I'm the Director of Delivery and Assurance for the Police and Fire and Crime Directorate.
Fiona?
I'm Fiona Kinnear, and I'm the Fire and Rescue Authority Manager.
JD, do you want to just introduce the Fire and Rescue Service staff who are on the call? Oh, I've already introduced Damien, but do you want to introduce anybody else?
Jonathan Dyson, Chief Fire Officer, and Matt.
Yeah, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Matt Walker, Deputy Chief Fire Officer.
Thank you.
Great. And the other people who are on the call, just for the benefit of anyone watching this back, are people who are helping with the facilitation of the public meeting. So we've got Amanda Bowers from the communications team, Mark Ayres from the Public Confidence Directorate, Charlie French from the Fire and Rescue Service, and Rebecca Smith from the Delivery and Assurance team. So without further ado, Damien, I'll hand over to you. I think we're going to look at the performance update first.
We are. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Can you just confirm that everyone can see the slides?
Yes, I can. That's great. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you. So the reporting period for this online public meeting is the 1st of April to June 10th. This is the only online public meeting that falls outside of our normal quarterly reporting for performance. So you will see slightly different slides on this one, but we will be able to show Q2 figures at the next online public meeting. So with regards to prevention, what we have on this slide, we have the details of the previous year where we did see an 18% increase in our home fire safety visits. That included also an increase of 544% on those that are very high and high. In the financial year to date, we continue to see an uplift in home fire safety visits, and within May, we completed 529 home fire safety visits, which is more than any single month in the previous year. So a real good start to the year with numbers of home fire safety visits. And of the 809 that were completed to June 10th, 809 of the ones that were completed in April, May, June are very high and high. So that equates to 69% of all our home fire safety visits are again targeting those most vulnerable in our communities.
Great. Just before you move on, could you just clarify how those high and very high visits are identified? So which partners you're working with, for example, to get those referrals, and whether you're doing any kind of outreach in the other direction, as in asking partners to refer people in order to get that increase up to the very high and high fire safety visits numbers, because that is really encouraging.
Yes, certainly, Deputy Mayor. So all our partners have access to our Safe Links referral system now. They have an application that allows them to, as they're visiting premises, properties, they're liaising with individuals across the service area, they're able to do an assessment and put that straight through. That is one of the reasons why high and very high have increased so much, that they actually do a mini assessment at point of contact with the individual, so we know when it comes through to North Yorkshire Fire and Rescue that those properties that we're going into are those most vulnerable within our communities. These are all partners across council, housing, Yorkshire Ambulance Service, working with police. So all of those have got access to our Safe Links referral system on their applications, and they can refer them straight into us. Obviously, once we do the home fire safety visit, if there are any other areas within the properties which would have need other experts, so if there is anything with regards to smoking cessation or falls prevention, we will refer them back to partners so we can do that holistic intervention for members of the public, where we go in, we do our bits with regards to fire safety and safety around the home, but then if they're better suited to be provided by any other partner, we will refer them back to them so they can give that full support to the individuals.
Great. And just on prevention, I'll bring Matt in and then I'll come back with my next question. Sorry.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I think also just on the Safe Links programme, it's important to note that this is a regional programme, not just York and North Yorkshire. The Safe Links referrals are considered and discussed at a regional forum, which allows us to identify any trends and learn from those trends and bring them back into York and North Yorkshire. So in terms of the sort of national picture, Yorkshire and Humber have been sort of held in high regard with regards to getting this on the ground and embedding it into partnership referrals. So it's a real good news story from our point of view.
Yeah, absolutely. So you just actually made me think that one of the things that would be useful to understand is there presumably are traditional risks, which Damien, you just alluded to in terms of smoking, for example, and elderly people. But do we have any other factors, geographical ones, that we would also be factoring into the way in which we are prioritising those high and very high prevention visits?
When we do the home fire safety visits, Deputy Mayor, there's a number of things. The form that we use for the home fire safety visit, it is constantly evolving. Obviously, historically, when home fire safety visits were introduced 15, 20 years ago, it referred to things which were far more prevalent, like chip pan fires and people smoking in bed. That has now moved on, and we look at other areas. So if there is any issues that are identified nationally, so charging units, plug sockets, new technologies such as e-scooters and the charging of those, the home fire safety visit constantly evolves to meet those new demands that come through, either that we identify in North Yorkshire and York, or that come through from any incidents that we've had regionally or nationally.
Great. And then finally, just before we move on, obviously it's hot at the moment. We're in the middle of summer. Do you change or do slightly different prevention activities relating to either kind of water safety or wildfires, which I know we're going to touch on later in this meeting, but just in particular, just understanding what other prevention activity might be taking place, particularly in the summer months?
Yep, certainly. So yeah, we do cover all the prevention activities that were within the National Fire Chiefs Council's calendar of activities, but we do also then flex to meet those local demands that we see in North Yorkshire and the City of York. So obviously during the summer months we do much more activities with people that may be coming into the county from elsewhere. So I was at a station, one of our on-call stations last night, and I was speaking to a firefighter that had just been out during the day on the fire bike, so engaging with users on bikes at known hotspots for either incidents or where bikers may congregate. And like you've suggested already, the thematic around wildfires, we will increase our activity in our known natural beauty spots, so we keep informing people of what they can do to mitigate the risk of any fires and wildfires. And also with the water, we have got some areas of natural beauty that people want to come and attend, some of our inland waterways, so we do increase activity around that in the summer months, because it is far more likely that that's when visitors will come to our waters.
Great, thank you. I think the Deputy Chief Fire Officer did indicate he wanted to come back in. Did you want to come back in?
I did, just very briefly, Deputy Mayor, just on the previous point. I think sort of social isolation and rurality also form part of our home safety checks as well, which is specific obviously to North Yorkshire, given the size of the area that we have to cover. So it's just something else that we consider as part of our home safety checks.
Okay, and just anything else, Damien or Matt, on what else the public can be doing to support the prevention work that is taking place?
I will leave that one to the Deputy Mayor. He's got his hand up.
Yeah, absolutely, Deputy Mayor. I think it's about making sure people understand the risk. We have our social platforms. We have a number of individuals, as Damien's mentioned, that go out into the communities. But I think it's just about making sure that you're aware. I think everybody understands the impact of, in particular, things like wildfires. Wildfires often start by something as simple as a discarded cigarette or not looking after barbecues properly. So it's just about making sure people understand their own responsibility, their own responsibility of residents of North Yorkshire and York, making sure that actually they understand the consequences of that. If you're unsure, call us, contact us, and we'll be able to provide the education that people may need. So it's just about making sure everybody is aware of that.
Great, thank you. We can move on to the next slide.
Thank you. The next slide is for our protection activity, so building fire safety, and as you can see again there, we have 2024-25's performance with all the business engagement activity that we do, our regulatory activity, so that is when we go into our commercial industrial premises and do fire safety audits, and also the large amount of consultation activity that we do. So these are for new builds, changes in bills, or also we do licensing applications. So that is for firework, the sales of fireworks. So we do those applications as well. With the small data field that we've got up until the June the 10th, the activity maintains, it's quite static on all of the areas. We have now introduced our risk-based intervention programme. So over a period of 3 years, we have 2,700 there or thereabouts, high and very high buildings that we have said we've committed that we will get to each one of those within the next 3 years. As they come through on the next online public meeting, that equates to around 900 a year, and we will be able to inform yourself and the public how we're meeting that risk-based intervention programme. So that is a high priority for NYFRS, where they're looking to make sure that we are taking a risk-based approach, that we are engaging with those buildings and building owners where it is the buildings of highest risk within our areas. With regards to the highest risk, that normally is dependent upon sleeping risk, so it will be hospitals, care homes, where people are unfamiliar to those buildings, and also where there is a sleeping risk. There are other criteria that go into that as well, but the main feature of the high and very high risk ones for building fire safety is that there is some sleeping risk involved in that premise.
Okay, and just in terms of those fire safety complaints, how would someone, a member of the public, report something that they were concerned about in terms of fire safety? How would they report that to you? What response would they receive, and how would you ensure that they were kept updated with what you were doing about the issue that they'd raised?
Certainly. So with regards to the fire safety complaints, so as it says on the sort of data set to the left, there's lots of engagement activity that's undertaken. So that can be a direct face-to-face referral, or they can access our website where there is a dedicated section on business fire safety where they can report any complaints or any concerns that they have with a certain premise. They will receive a response by the local fire safety team, letting them know what's happening, and then we will be able to then give them feedback on anything that has been undertaken at that premise. So we do get a number of complaints that come through. Those will be investigated. They are triaged dependent on what the complaint may be, but we will get out to those in a timely way and investigate any complaint that comes through either via our website or to business fire safety in person.
And does that obviously applies to businesses, but what would a member of the public or a parish council, for example, if they wanted to report something, what would they follow the same process?
Yes. So that is for a member of the public. So if a member of the public is going into one of our many premises around the county, if they've got any concerns, they can report that to ourselves, and then we will respond back to them and then investigate that in a timely way and keep them updated on what it is. So if they do see anything, any premises that do concern them, we do encourage them to use our website, report that, and then we will investigate that fully.
Great. And are there any common themes that come out of those things, or is there a huge kind of range?
I think there's a number of things. Probably at this time of year, Deputy Mayor, it may be fire doors kept open, so we will get that quite a bit given the weather. But as I've said, we will triage each one that comes in, and given the significance of the complaint, we will get someone out in a really timely manner. If it was something that provided us with concern that fire doors were locked inappropriately, we would then go out very, very soon to ensure that that wasn't the case. If it is the case, we will make sure that's remedied on site immediately.
Great, thank you. And then finally, just before we move on, just a jargon challenge. What does unscheduled data maintenance mean?
It's a very good question. That will be and again, apologies, I'm not a protection officer, but our unscheduled data maintenance, I believe that is the system that we hold all the information on. So we've got a system called CFMIS that records all of our data for each of the premises that we go in. So that is a review of the data to make sure that it is accurate, rather than it being a full visit to be on site. So you are reviewing the risk, you're doing it remotely, you're making sure that the data is still accurate, there's been no change of use, all of that information, just to make sure that the data that we hold is accurate.
Okay, that's really helpful. So, for example, in a care home, how many people are mobile or would require assistance to evacuate, for example?
Yes, yeah, but it isn't a full fire safety audit. That's why it's separated out from them.
Okay, that's great. We can move on to the next one.
Thank you. So with regards to incidents and response times, so again, incidents are broadly similar to the previous year in this small sample that we've had so far. If the figures on fires were to continue at this rate, we would see an increase. That has been due to the fact that, you know, it's been quite hot over the last couple of months. I know that you're aware, Deputy Mayor, of the large incident we had, 12 pump incident, that was in some way down to the hot weather that we've got. So fires are slightly up for the first 2 months. False alarms and special services are showing a slight decrease, but again, it is very slight. And given that this is only the first 2 months of this financial year, that potentially does have the time to change and even out. It has remained quite static over the previous 5 years, with the exception of when there was lockdown for COVID. It has remained quite static, but we have seen a slight increase year on year and with regards to fires. With regards to the response times, as you can see there, the overall incident response standard is 13 minutes and we're currently at 12 minutes 25. That is prior to any quality assurance of the data. When we bring the quarterly performance back, we make sure that all of that data has been quality assured. Usually that would mean that it would drop down slightly rather than going up, because at times it may be that things have been incorrectly tagged on our incident reporting system. With regards to dwelling fires, we're currently at 10 minutes 26 for the first 2 months of the year, and that's against the standard of 11 minutes. Again, that is prior to any quality assurance that needs to be undertaken at the end of the quarter.
Great. So just a couple of things. Mainly, it may be that this is because this is not a full quarter. So absolutely correct my challenge if needs be. But am I right in thinking this is I'm seeing slightly different data here to what I've had in previous meetings in terms of what is being reported in terms of incidents and response time. So the fire engine availability was on, I think, previous meeting slides, on this particular slide. And I think we also used to have a wider time period. So it may be that this is just because this is only not quite a full quarter, but the month by month reporting was actually really useful, as was the fire engine availability, in terms of being able to understand if there are particular parts of the region where, for example, we might need more on-call firefighters.
It is just due to it being to June the 10th rather than a full quarter, Deputy Mayor, and this is the only OPM that doesn't fit with the quarterly reporting. So on the slides, they do look very different, because once we've done the full quarter, we can do a direct comparison with the same period last year, which we haven't been able to do. And then you'd get those, like you've seen, it's probably a much wider graph where it shows every month, which is far more useful. It is just that we've had to just snip and capture things from the actual dashboard rather than having those comparisons. And as you've probably noticed, there isn't the narrative around all the other prevention activities that we've done. We capture that at the end of the month, at the end of the quarter, just to give that richer picture for yourself and the public.
That's fine. I don't know if the fire chief wanted to come in on that, or whether or not Damien's already clarified.
Just to confirm with the public, Deputy Mayor, obviously we provide the pack in consultation with yourselves in the office. If there are further areas that we want to analyse, or certain specific aspects which come from the public, then of course we're happy to look into those with the time to produce the pack for yourselves. Thank you.
Okay, great, thanks. In which case, let's assume that there'll be the data that other people may have expected to see on that slide deck. Let's make sure that next time, I'm more thinking about the assurance and the performance data that we're measuring for the police and fire plan as well, just making sure that there's nothing that we're missing in this forum that needs to fit in that wider fire and rescue plan, only because I noticed that slide was simpler than the slides I've seen for that particular issue previously, but I haven't done a June meeting before, so that must be that's the anomaly here.
And each of the next OPMs do follow in line with the end of the quarter, Deputy Mayor.
Great.
So the next ones we will have quarter 2s, then the next one quarter 3, and then obviously the year-end data as well.
Brilliant. Okay, fantastic. Next one.
And the next one is around risk information. So at the end of the financial year, we had 77 risks that are overdue. We've got well over 1,000 risks. I think it's 1,200 and something risks across the county, including water and wildfire risk plans. 77 of those risks were overdue a visit. This can be for a number of reasons. Certainly we make sure that they're not overdue for a significant period of time, but we do try and work with businesses. Obviously we don't want to impact the business themselves, so some of them can slightly go overdue. It is an area of priority for ourselves. Tom, as Director for Community Risk and Resilience, chairs a working group to ensure that these are highlighted and that we're taking appropriate action to reduce them. And in the first 2 months of this year, that figure has already reduced down to 64 risks that have a visit. As you can see from the slide on the right, very few of them are very high, and we try and make sure that there is a really prompt visit to those premises that have been defined as very high.
And the only question I had on this slide really was how you kind of differentiate between specific local or type of risk and the kind of wider strategic risks, and how that might manifest itself in the kind of wider risk information.
Yeah, not a problem. So the site-specific risk information, these visits are predominantly around gathering information for crews in the unlikely event that there was an incident at those. We follow the nationally recognised standard, which is classed as PORIS, which takes in a huge number of factors with regards to how many people work there, what processes they're doing within the industry, any risks that may be there. So coma sites, which are classification of major accident hazards, the larger premises that we've got within North Yorkshire that may be on an industrial level, they would be categorised as high and very high. It also takes in other factors, so the heritage risk. So certainly some of our buildings of historic nature, like the York Minster, that would be categorised as high and very high, just to make sure that we're regularly going round, understanding anything that is happening there. That's not due to any process that's within the building. That's just to ensure that when we respond, we can respond as effectively as we possibly can. So that'll score very high on the heritage risk, not so much on the process, but it looks across a wide range of risk factors to determine what is very high and what all the way down to what is very low. And that gives a frequency of visit, Deputy Mayor. So the very highs and high are 1 and 2 year. The very lows we may not visit at all. We may just contact those premises to say, has there been any change in your premise? Because it's low risk, we've got the plan, the tactical plan that we would have, and we just update that remotely, similar to the data maintenance question you asked on the last slide.
Perfect. All right, that's great. That's all I've got on that one.
And that is the end of that presentation, Deputy Mayor.
Fantastic. Right, so we're going to go slightly out of order, as I said at the beginning, and we're going to look at the inspection slides now, and obviously in addition to the slides that would have been up, I don't know whether the updated slides have gone up onto the website, but I know that this pack has been updated slightly since the news at midnight yesterday, that the inspection report has been published. So I'm not going to steal any glory at all from the inspection report. So I will hand over to you, Damien, and to the fire chiefs as well to update us on the inspections.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and it is far more of an interesting slide deck now we have had the report published yesterday, as you've said. But I will go through the normal report pack. So still ongoing within service, we had the thematic inspection by HMI-CFRS across all services into handling of misconduct in fire services. Our HMI governance group met earlier this week. That is chaired by the Deputy Chief. As you can see, we've got a number of the recommendations that are completed, which are the ones that are showing in blue. All the ones in green are the ones that are in progress and have had an update. At the meeting this week, there was a very clear instruction from the Deputy Chief that those recommendations that are showing in February and May need a significant update prior to our next monthly meeting. Quite a number of those will be completed the next time we have an online public meeting. They're waiting for the update rather than waiting for activity to be done. Some of the recommendations we do need further conversations about how we're going to address certain elements of it, but certainly I think we'll be in a position that certainly the February and May recommendations will be showing blue rather than green.
Okay, that's great. I was going to ask about that, but you've told me already, so that's very helpful.
Yep.
That
slide just tells you how we risk assess them. I think I mentioned this previously, Deputy Mayor, but just to make sure that everyone is kept informed. So HMI-CFRS have launched a monitoring portal. The monitoring portal, this has been in for some time on the police inspections. The way in which we capture evidence internally against any recommendations that come out of our report or any thematic reports, HMI just want to capture that from us now as well. So they've given levels to each of the areas where we need to provide evidence. We see this as a real positive thing because actually we can update HMI on our progress prior to an inspection rather than just waiting for the inspectors to come into the service. So level 4 would be causes of concern. As I know you're aware, we got previously in our 2022 inspection report, but soon got those closed. Those would be the ones. Any areas for improvement will probably fall somewhere between level 2 and level 3, and we will send the information that we capture already internally onto the monitoring portal, and we can have a dialogue with the inspectors if they require any further information for us to close any of those areas for improvement.
Great. You can move on.
Thank you. So this was just the timeline. As you can see there, we were anticipating publication of our HMI inspection report in late...
Sorry. Oh, there we go. It's moved on now. Sorry. Carry on.
Yes. So just on the June-July was the anticipated publication. We were informed, I believe, 32 hours in advance that it was going to be published yesterday, and that is why we have updated the slides. So I believe the first of those updated slides is next, and these are our results from the most current inspection. So as you can see, Deputy Mayor, we received 6 good grades and 5 adequate grades. The adequate grade has only been introduced during this round of inspection. So previously they were 4 grades. It's a really positive judgment for us. So we have seen an increase, an accumulative improvement in grades of 15 grades across the 11 questions within the report. 9 of the 11 questions have shown an improvement, and we are one of only 11 services so far this inspection, which is nearing the end. I think there's about 5 or 6 services still to be published, but we are one of 11 services not to receive either a requires improvement or an inadequate grade. So that is hugely pleasing for the organisation and does sort of represent all of the work and commitment of everyone involved in trying to improve our grades from the previous inspection. If I just bring up the next slide.
Don't move. I didn't really want you to move on from that slide just yet, actually.
Certainly.
Just go back to the previous slide, and I just wanted to just ask if the fire chief or the deputy fire chief just wanted to say anything about the inspection report. You know, I've certainly got my own praise to bestow, but also I think it would be, whilst those actual goods and those areas that have moved along are on the screen, it would just be really nice to hear from the fire chief if he's got any words about that inspection.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and I absolutely do thank you. Ultimately, Deputy Mayor, this was my, I was appointed after the last inspection, so this is my first full inspection as Chief Fire Officer. And whilst I set the strategic direction for this, this is all down to the delivery of the strategic leadership team and the staff within the service. And they deserve every bit of praise that is coming their way currently, because they've gone over and above in all aspects of what they do. Everybody has got behind the change for the organisation, the change in culture, the change in the direction that we're taking now, because we have those core principles, as it says in our slides: progress, people and community. We are at the heart of the community. We are making sure that we resource to risk appropriately to drive risk reduction, and we make sure our people, and we're working harder in this area to make sure that they're the heart of our organisation. Damien's given some fantastic statistics there, particularly that we are one of only 11 services currently where we do not have any areas so requires improvements or inadequates. But we mustn't forget the journey we've come on. In a very short period of time, which is one inspection period of 2 years, and significantly without any direct funding for the investment in the service at this point, we've reduced the service from 24 areas for improvement down to 7. We've removed 2 causes of concern, and we've dismissed 8 recommendations with the HMI in that period. That's enormous for an organisation of this size with the resources that it actually has. So from myself to staff, I've communicated this, but once again, this is an excellent thing that's been achieved. It's down to them and their work and their direction and their support for the direction that the strategic leadership team has taken. And they are now, and the communities of North Yorkshire are safer now than they were 2 years ago. I applaud them, I applaud the approach, and I welcome the inspection. Thank you.
Brilliant. And that, you know, certainly from my perspective, inspections are about exactly that, keeping the public safe. And I think knowing that the public are safer now than they were 2 years ago is probably the most reassuring thing that people should take from those the inspection report. And you probably haven't emphasised enough how much of that is down to the strategic leadership of the service, as well as it being down to all the individual firefighting teams across the region and everything that they've done. But actually, overall, this is now a safer place for people to live and work than it was 2 years ago, and that is down to the work that the service has done. So huge thanks and congratulations from me, and I know the Mayor has reiterated that as well. But it is a really amazing progress to have made in 2 years, and I know that the work is ongoing. So that is just a great foundation now to be continuing to build on.
Thank you for that. And again, for our staff, we'll make sure that's pushed all the way through the service and understood. Thank you.
Damien, do you want to go? The next slide is also good, but I just quite liked that one.
Yeah, certainly. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. The next slide just shows the changing grades and the improvement. As I said previously, there has been an improvement in 9 of the core questions that are used by HMI-CFRS. As we always do, there is one that's remained static. HMI will say they're always about continuous improvement. So actually, you do need to improve to stand still. So, you know, the fact that prevention has remained as good, I would suggest that that demonstrates that we have continued to improve in that area. As we always do, the one area that has shown a drop from good to adequate, that's the one that's jumped out at us, and we're already working on how we can ensure that that is improved by the time of the next inspection. But a massively positive change in grades. What is really pleasing on this one, Deputy Mayor, is if you look at the 2 which were making best use of resources and getting the right people with the right skills, they were the 2 that were given inadequate grades and had the causes of concern. So obviously they were prioritised, and to see a jump of 3 grades within that 2-year period, I certainly can say that that's unheard of. So massive amounts of effort and massive prioritisation in those areas, and a huge amount of work to get those both up, those 3 grades up to good.
Yeah, no, it's all really positive, and certainly, as the fire chief just said, all of this improvement has been delivered off the back of the previous financial settlement that the service had, and we've obviously done the mayor and I made the difficult decision around the precept earlier this year, and therefore we've now got some additional funding coming into the service, which hopefully will enable the service to kind of build on this progress, but also hopefully with slightly more flex in the system than there has been over the last 15 years.
Yeah, thank you. So this slide, we hop back onto the treadmill because we've announced the inspections for 25 to 27, so we can start preparing for our inspection. There is actually only the first 14 services that have had their preliminary dates for their inspection, but given those dates, we're going to be 37th of the 44 English Fire and Rescue Services to be inspected. That's a very similar position to where we were inspected this time, and you would expect that given our performance. They will sometimes, HMI will bring forward services where they think that more work was needed. We've remained in a static position at 37th, just doing some really basic calculations that would suggest that we will be inspected again somewhere between early and mid 2027. Our inspection improvement action plan will continue. As the chief's quite rightly said, this time we have 7 areas for improvement, all of which will be identified through our strategic document, the Community Risk Management Plan, but they will have an individual action plan to show how we're going to address each of those 7 areas for improvement. And also we will identify any other commentary within the report that we think areas needed to be improved as well. But that work again starts in earnest. We will also, as part of the inspection, there was a survey to staff. We will get the results of that survey, and we will compare them to results of our own internal engagement surveys and see if there are any other improvements that we can make analysing both of those surveys.
Brilliant. Fantastic. You can move on.
And that was the end of the presentation, Deputy Mayor.
Fantastic. Was there anything anyone else wanted to add around the inspections before we move on to the thematic presentation And Tom, I think, has now joined the call. Yes, he has. Tom Hurst, I can see him at the bottom, who's going to be leading on the wildfire presentation. So if there's nothing else on the report, the inspection report people can find on the North Yorkshire Fire and Rescue Service website as well as the HMI website. Is that right? It's quite, I think it's about a 50-page document if you want to read the full thing. But obviously we've got the snapshot there. Great. Fantastic. In which case, Tom, welcome to the meeting. I hope you're there.
Hi, Deputy Mayor. Yeah, I'm here. I will share my screen now. Apologies for the delay. I was chairing a multi-agency meeting, so jumps across to deliver this. So yeah, please let me know if you can see the slides. I'm
hoping it's just about to update. Yes, I can see it now.
Yep. So I should be in that mode. Please let me know if you have any questions. I've just got this as a full screen, so please shout up if you.
If you can pause before you move on from every. Just assume I might have questions. I don't have questions on every slide, but if you can pause before you move on.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
I don't have any questions on this one though.
Yeah, I think the first two you might not, but after that, I'm sure there'll be something that you may want to discuss. But so yeah, so this was the introduction about the presentation. What we'll be covering the definitions, statistics, causation factors, and then how we prepare, how we respond, and how we try to prevent wildfires and larger fires in the open from happening. A little bit about the definition. So wildfire, it didn't have its own definition up to I think 2022 was where it really started seeing it more. And the NFCC put a set definition in and around the fact that it was uncontrolled vegetation that used to sit just under moorland, but it was a little bit more specific to try and get some real clarity of definition. So when it is mentioned around a wildfire, it covers some key criteria, which is the geographical area. It's got to hit one of them. So it's a uncontrolled vegetation fire, which hits one or more of the following criteria. So one's about the geographical area, so the actual size that it affects, the actual flame size, resources of 4 appliances or more, the time frames. So it's got to be at least over 6 hours. And it also, if it affects any serious threat of life, environment, property, or infrastructure. I'll pause there.
Great. Yeah, no, I don't have any questions on your definition.
Okay, thank you. So a little bit just more about the moorland definition. So this has been quite more established in the sector for a lot longer. And this one covers, once again, what is defined. So if it doesn't fit into that, it would fit into this if it was around the moorland environment. So it's a large area, produce tall flames, demand prolonged resource-intensive suppression efforts, or presents risk to habitats or communities.
Great, thank you.
The other definition we were asked about was around standing corn or standing crop.
Yes.
So this fits within a certain sector. So when you look at the NFCC guidance, this one features in the rural and wildfire risk, and the definition around standing corn stroke standing crop is unharvested cereal that remains in an upright position in a field, and it sort of incorporates more than just corn. It incorporates wheat, barley, oats, and rye, and any sort of grains of that nature.
Great.
Causes. So what causes them? Where we can, we'll always try and look and try and learn from wherever we can find the cause. The key ones are usually littering. So this can be anything from cigarettes down to things like bottles, broken or solid glass bottles, and the reflection from those, which can lead to fire, certainly through warm, dry spells. Unfortunately, we see unattended fires. So sometimes set with all the best purposes, but then left unattended. Campfires, bonfires, barbecues, especially the disposable kind, where people haven't put them on any sort of hard standing or undertaken them in the inappropriate areas, and not extinguished them properly before leaving. We do get some deliberate fire setting, unfortunately, and also controlled burning, sometimes where it has been managed, and that can, on occasions around the sector, we've been not so much so in North Yorkshire, but it has been seen in the sector where that has gone out of control.
Yeah, and just before you move on that one, just in terms of those land management techniques, are there, does that kind of change in terms of, are there trends around how land is managed as things changed over time, or are there just differences of opinion about whether controlled burning is a good way to manage land versus whether there are other ways of managing the same land for different types of landowners?
Yeah, it certainly gets a varied opinion. I think that's a really good way of putting it. I think what we've noticed, and I mentioned it 2 or 3 times coming up, not only obviously we see the wildfires and the moorland fires more in summer. However, some of the environmental effects in winter, so the warmer, wetter winters, are causing increased vegetation. So with that, there is a level of need and requirement to control that more. So yeah, it is. But how it is done, working with the landowners, yeah, it certainly has a different mixed viewpoints. Let's just say.
And does the service have its own opinion about what is the best way of managing land in terms of reducing the fire risk, or is that just not kind of area that you would stray into?
We would follow. What we do is I work closely in both prevention and protection with the NFCC committees, and what we do wherever possible is we have a position statement, and for North Yorkshire Fire and Rescue Service, we always follow, or we always try and follow where best possible, the NFCC position statements. I know they are looking at that and reviewing that at the moment, in relation to certain things happening at a national level around this. And like I said, some other areas are seeing a level of uncontrolled controlled burning of land management. So it's been a subject of conversation at a couple of the last meetings. So if we do get
and if people weren't sure about whether or not they should be doing controlled burning, would the advice be that they should just seek the advice of the service before they make the decision?
I'd like them to certainly get in touch with us, please. Yeah. We'll certainly put that message. We will always engage with people to try and make sure they're delivering safe practices.
I'll bring the Deputy Fire Chief in. Matt.
Thanks, Deputy Chief. Just to add some context in terms of the local fire that we had recently at Strensall Common. Tom's mentioned there around the core land management techniques and wildfire reduction. One of the things that was present there were fire breaks and access routes, which were instrumental in allowing us access to key areas of Strensall Common, which allowed us to be far more concerted in terms of our water application. So we do work with people, we do work with the MOD, but ultimately things like fire breaks and access routes are fantastic for us to allow us to be able to mitigate those fires in particular.
Brilliant. Yes, I was going to come on to, in fact, I will hold off asking you about partnerships and things until a little bit later in the presentation. So Tom, if you want to move on for now, that would be great.
Yeah, certainly. So a little bit about discuss the definitions, putting it into figures now for North Yorkshire Fire and Rescue Service. So over the last, as you can see there, because of the definition, we've got the data from 2022 to 25, and you'll have to excuse me, I've put a bit of a mistake in this one. So yeah, we've had 42 incidents, and I'm just going to cover in a slide further on about 2022, and if you notice there, I've not got my sums wrong there. It was over 50% are accounted to 2022 of those that fitted into that new definition.
Yeah.
And then some more for moorland fires and standing crop fires. So figures there, I took them back to 2021. So 11 of the moorland, 20 of standing crop fires.
And just to remind everyone, what were the circumstances in 2022 that were different to the year before and the years since?
Yeah, if you don't mind bearing with me, I'm going to talk about that in a future slide. Yep, no problem. Right. It was as if it was a seamless transition, that, because here we go. So the summer of 2022.
Oh, there we go.
A Bryan Adams song suddenly crept into my mind there, but no, it was the summer of 2022. So it was the first time the UK experienced a daily maximum temperature of over 40 degrees. There were some real key milestones, and if I'm honest, it was the certainly my 23-year career. It was a real noticeable one, just on the magnitude of incidents we attended and size. So yeah, it was the first time we'd experienced over 40 degrees. It was the first time the average temperature throughout the year was over 10 degrees. What I spoke about earlier, we'd had a wetter and somewhat seasonally a bit warmer winter, so that had an increase in vegetation growth, which obviously acts as a wildfire fuel. We were then, in the June and July spell, we were hit with an incredibly hot, dry weather period, and the figures for England and Wales were 983 for that year, which is an increase from 247 wildfires in 2021 and 146 in 2020. So if you put that in percentages, that's a 315 and a 573% increase, respectively. Yeah, so it was incredibly warm, and it was described as a 1 in 100 event by many different people. However, discussions around the obviously increase in temperature that we keep seeing and hearing about, that will then somewhat sort of reduce these 1 in 100 to less, so they will become more common. But yeah, it was the control rooms throughout England and Wales saw an increase by 500% in 9/9 calls on the daily average. And it was noticeably that the first time it really came into the sort of the public arena and somewhat the fire sector arena, we were real visible, was something called rural urban interface. This was where wildfires were sort of then approaching property and infrastructure and affecting it. So we did see around the country, we saw where wildfires had then led on to cause domestic incidents, domestic dwellings. There was quite a considerable one in London that year, and yeah, we saw it spread into dwellings and other commercial properties.
And can I just ask, in terms of that kind of summer, and obviously a 1 in 100 event, 1 in 100 year event, if it happens again, then suddenly isn't 1 in 100, it's 1 in 50 or 1 in 25, and actually then they are starting to happen much more frequently. But in terms of things like anticipation of some of those things, which I'm sure you're going to come on to in terms of equipment, I just wanted to ask about sources of water in those scenarios. Obviously in 2022, the bigger challenge was that almost I assume every fire service in the country was affected in 2022, and sometimes it'll be more more regional than that. But what do you do about accessing water sources when you've got potentially multiple things going on at the same time?
Yeah, so it's all about our emergency response preparation around that. I think you're right in very much in what you said around we do have different sort of arrangements. So we have localized arrangements where we can rely on provisions from our neighbouring fire and rescue service, and they can rely on ours when needed. We also have national assets that we can rely on. However, like I say, when you do get this level of event, and more so this event in comparison to like flooding often it can come in sort of a weather wave, so it can go from north to south of the country, or it can go west to east predominantly. So what you tend to get then is you get we can support and assist. So people on the national assets will travel further afield to support, because often with flooding you don't get it all at once. Somewhat different when it comes to prolonged dry weather, because it does tend to be the fact that everybody gets it at once. So we just need to make sure that we've got our responses right around that, and that's why we have increased our provisions around wildfire. In relation to water, we would rely on our usual sources, so we've got our obviously hydrants and mains provisions, and then we've got sources of water that we can use within our fire service app that we've got access to, and right to use that water when required.
And presumably some of that's about partnership, which I think I was going to ask about in a couple of slides' time. But the importance of kind of knowing who your local partners are, whether that's a regional kind of North Yorkshire level, or whether it's actually a particular fire station knowing their own farmers and landowners in their patch.
Yeah, it is. It's really important, and it's something that I cover a little bit later on. Yeah, working with the
Okay,
local
in which case
resilience
let's move on,
forum.
and I'll
I'll
pick it up then. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks. So yeah, next bit. So our emergency response preparation. So we now make sure that we capture the risk around wildfire. We do wildfire risk inspections where we've got known sites that's foreseeable, where we will be seeing, or we have the potential to see wildfire. We make sure we're out there and do an inspection of it, which then gets reviewed at a suitable time period to make sure everything's still relevant, you know, around sort of vegetation, access points, things like that, making sure that we've got to allocate the right resources when required if we get an incident at that area. We've also got our own wildfire tactical advisor that sits within the, you know, I talked about shared national assets. We share tactical advisors, and we've got one of our own within there. And then to support them as well and to support the service, we've got wildfire support officers. So our station officer group managers, we've got some of them that are wildfire support officers. We've also increased our wildfire teams and then backup teams and resilience. And now we've just recently put a business case in, and everything's working towards enhanced provision in the control room.
Great. So just in terms of the kind of training specifically around wildfires, and I should give a shout out to I think it was Niall in Whitby fire station, who I saw on Tuesday, who was he knew everything about wildfires. I was talking to him about the fact that the meeting was on this afternoon, and he had lots of things to ask and to suggest, and he knew everything about the equipment and training that he'd obviously had. I just wondered how often that kind of training was undertaken, and how widespread the kind of wildfire trained team is across the region.
Yeah, so it's the proportionate amount of training dependent on it. So the teams, the wildfire teams, have far more, you know, and they've got the right equipment and things like that they need to make sure they're prepared and trained on. So everyone has a set awareness of wildfire, but then our provisions and our teams, which I'll move on to next, they have an enhanced amount, and then they've got stations nearby to help and support with the backup around that as well. Because we have got now tools and equipment that we didn't used to have very much. So when I was firefighting at the front line, it was more, we had water provision if we could gain access to it, and then we just had beaters to try and extinguish fires where we couldn't get water to them. So it's come a lot since then. We've got things to cut the vegetation.
And what's that vehicle in the picture? And is it a standalone, or does it tow stuff?
Yeah, so this comes on a trailer and then gets dropped off on request of the IC. It's a 4x4 provision, and it's got a misting device on as well. So it has got a level of where it can extinguish out. But what it's really good for is making sure that we can get resource to where the fires are. One of the big issues around it is making sure you can get access to the point of the fire, because it's not always near a road. So yeah, they're coming really beneficial, and I'll cover just where we've got those positioned.
Just one second. Just in terms of the control room, how do you kind of manage, and what does enhanced provision in the control room mean? Would that be when you knew that, for example, it was particularly hot and you had wildfires that were, you know, just starting in places where you couldn't predict?
Yeah, so we do have a level of reserve within the control room, and we can do that. But no, we're actually putting a business case to increase the provision. within the control room, not purely on wildfire, on the back of Grenfell recommendations and for multiple reasons. So that will be coming into place. It's not my project, but I believe that we'll be seeing that towards the back end of the year, to make sure that we've got that. Obviously the business case went in, but then they've been doing recruitment, and I believe recruitment's finished, and we'll be looking to appoint and train anytime soon.
Brilliant, thank you.
So yeah, so the emergency response, we've got wildfire teams, Laban, Kirby Moorside and Settle, that are equipped with an Argo Cat. Which I talked about earlier, comes complete with water tank and misting units. They also have a 4x4 provision there, and then they have a suite of wildfire tools, hand tools and specialist PPE. Northallerton and Oldtime are also trained, and the on-call, they have wildfire tools, hand tools and PPE, but not the 4x4, the Argo Cat provision. And then what we've been doing recently is training personnel up at Reeth and Bentham, so they can provide extra resilience.
Great. And like I said, you obviously have people who are experts in this in other parts of the service. They're just not working in a particular wildfire area, but presumably wildfires can happen everywhere. So, this is just targeted.
Yeah. Like I said, there's a tremendous amount of expertise around the service, and like I said, all future ideas and suggestions are always welcome to the R&R team.
Sorry, just before you move on from that side, how does that kind of level of response provision compare to other areas, particularly, I guess, other comparable areas for us of kind of more rural areas, perhaps with more challenging terrain?
Yeah, so it's a good balance. I think the resilience is really important. I'm really pleased the fact that we are looking at the neighbouring sort of stations, so where you've got at Laban, that we are backing it up with Reeth and so forth, Settle. So we have got that backup of resilience when required. Yeah, I believe it's balanced. I could do some further work around that to show some comparisons nationally for sure, if you'd like that for future.
Always more information is always welcome. Just a couple of other things in terms of performance indicators. I mean, it's how do you evaluate the response that you're having, and are there any examples of things that you kind of learned from the recent wildfire incidents that the service has had to attend?
Yeah, each incident of that sort of scale, magnitude or importance, that comes with a structured debrief. So what happens is that it's all the appliances that attend, every staff member that attended receives information, and it's fed back, it's collated through, and then what we do is we share the learning opportunities, what went well, what potentially we could do, what equipment, what resources, what command decisions went well.
And do you use drones at the moment to assess how things are spreading, or is that something the service doesn't currently have? Oh, I think we had a bit of
national organizer can flip the whole sector, and yeah.
So, Tom, sorry to cut you off. I don't know whether it was my end or at your end. We definitely had a glitch in the reception there. It might well have been at our end. I don't know whether that affects the recording, but would you mind just starting however you began your answer to my last question? Would you mind just starting your answer again?
Apologies, did I seem to have dropped off there, didn't I?
You did. Yeah. I can hear you now, so hopefully it's going to hopefully we can carry on.
Right, yeah, sorry. How far did you get on that last question, if you don't mind?
So I asked the question. I don't know whether I actually got cut you off before you'd finished my previous question. I was asking you about performance indicators and examples, which I thought you'd answered. And then I asked you about whether or not you're using drones at the moment to assess the spread of them, and or whether or not that's something the service doesn't have currently.
No, what we've got there is we've got two sort of MOUs, two agreements. So we've got one with North Yorkshire Police. North Yorkshire Police carry drone on a fleet of their vehicles, so we can request them when required for things like wildfire, flooding, or when we're working together around a missing person. We've also got a regional one with West Yorkshire as well, but the one with NYP has been utilised on more than one occasion.
Brill. And then just finally, and then we can move on to the next slide. But what, in terms of firefighter safety in a wildfire kind of context, are there different ways in which you need to maintain and enhance firefighter safety if you're dealing with a wildfire than you would with a conventional kind of more conventional building based fire?
Depending on, you know, size, severity, they all come with a magnitude of risks. That's why it's really important that we have trained personnel using the equipment that they've been safely trained on as well, because yeah, you can, the issue with a wildfire, what you can have is you can have sudden sort of changes in wind directions, or a change in vegetation can cause a severe increase in the fire severity. So you've got to have that that training, knowledge and understanding. And we have got, through the national organisational guidance, we've got some principles in place that make sure that we keep firefighters as safe as possible when they attend this type of incident.
Right. Okay. Move on to the next one.
So a little bit about prevention activities. Like with anything that we do, we make sure we focus a proportionate amount of prevention to the risk that we've got there. So we use sort of three areas. Universal engagement, that's making sure that everybody's got knowledge and understanding. We use things like social media campaigns, literatures, websites for that. And then what we can do then is we can focus a little bit more on targeted education and engagements, you know, where we think of a certain area demographic, or what we think we might be, you know, using data, right? We need to sort of do more engagement with that area, and then where we really start identifying further risk, we can do some real more isolated risk interventions, and we do that through all levels, whether it's home fire safety visits, road safety, or when it comes to the climate around water and wildfire. So yeah, so we use a suite
apologies, Tom. I
Yeah.
can't see, I've got a printed copy in front of me, although that's no use for the meeting. I can't see the prevention activities slide. I don't know whether I don't know if it's moved on for you and just hasn't moved on in the meeting.
Okay, just bear with us. Has that moved on?
Just give it a moment. I can't see it yet.
If not, I have got a backup provision we can use.
Do you want to try unsharing and then just resharing the right slide, and then maybe we'll be able to see?
Can you see
like that?
See if my
I can
backup
still
plan may
only
work.
see the emergency response slide.
Okay.
Oh, there we go. There we go.
Right,
I can see it now.
I've had to switch over to my sort of electronic version, so you will have to bear with me. I'll just have to slide it down between
Oh,
between the
apologies.
slides.
But yeah, I
Yeah,
can see
but
it
no,
now,
we've
at
got
least. Thank
we've
you.
got a backup provision, so at least everyone can see what I was talking about, or what I am
Exactly.
talking about there. So yeah, so as you can see, we've got the triangle where we're trying to make sure that we do that universal engagement with all, so people have got that level of understanding, but we hone it down and use more expertise around those specific real risk areas. So yeah, some of the stuff that we've been undertaking, we can and we do take youth activities during summer holiday periods. We've got our own packages, and we work with partnerships as well around that. We work within the local resilience forum around community resilience in there. And then some of the stuff that's fallen out the back is we've done pieces of work working with National Trust Rangers to try and put packages together, working alongside them about fire safety in the rural areas, which includes, you know, moorland, wildfire and so forth. We've done a massive thing around farm fire safety campaigns, which covers safety in the home, within the farm environment, within the industrial land and the agricultural land as well, which covers the crop fires. We're now looking at a work with the Farmers Union to try and work closer. What tends to happen when you do get a standing corn incident, we tend to get a lot of help and support from the farming community, certainly the local farming community. They will put fire breaks in for us using their equipment. They'll also use some of their water carrying equipment as well to support that. So they use a multiple of farming equipment to make sure we isolate that fire at the earliest opportunity. And on the back of that, we also then help them, support them with our fire safety campaign, making sure that they've got all the right education and engagement they require.
And just in terms of, I think you mentioned the local resilience forum, but just can you say a little bit more about how the fire service coordinates with the other emergency services or local authorities and other agencies if there was, for example, a large wildfire incident?
Yeah, so we could probably cover a whole presentation on the resilience forum. It might be a good one to do at a future time. But what happens around that is we've got the national risk that then feeds down into localised risk, all the national key risk areas that feeds down into the North Yorkshire and City of York risk, the key risk ones. And on the back of that, we've got different groups that then work on the bottom end of that. One of them's around how we support and help community resilience. So where we look at where we've got risk, which is around the climate, we make sure that then we're working with partners alongside to keep those communities safe, where we identify where that activity needs to take place.
And just in terms of the kind of education and outreach programs that are obviously part of the prevention work that you're doing, just some examples of what's in place, particularly around wildfires. Presumably wildfires and water safety are two of the education and outreach kind of focuses, but just anything particular on wildfires and in terms of the education part of that and what the consequences are.
Yeah, so we follow the we utilise the NFCC campaign material, and then anything that's relevant around the risks in our area, we utilise that, and sometimes we adjust and tweak to suit our risks within our areas. A couple of the big bits that we're using at the moment, it's called Be More Aware. Obviously MOOR, not MORE, and that gives a series of advice to try and make sure that people are enjoying the rural moorland areas, but doing it in a safe manner as possible. And there's a couple of the examples of that below, which I'll share with you. And then some of the stuff that we've done where we are seeing both water and wildfire, where we feel there's more risk, so we're getting a heightened amount of visitors, or we've seen some historical incidents, or partners have, we can do joint patrols as well. So we can actually go out there where we identify times and certain areas and have those engagements with people, which works really well. And like I said, we've got a suite of material dependent on the criteria or the category of age group that we're having those discussions with.
Great, fantastic. Can we move on to the next one?
Cool. So yeah, so as you can see there on the right hand side, it's just some of the wildfire awareness.
It's not moved on. Apologies, Tom, it's just not moved on for me again.
Okay. Are you still on the triangle there, Deputy
Yes,
Mayor?
I can still see the triangle. I can see what I'm supposed to be looking at because I've got a printed copy, but that's no
Right,
good for the meeting.
Bear with me.
So is the recording working okay? Yeah. Oh, actually, if the recording is... Matt, did you want to come in? Can you see it okay?
I can see it, Deputy Mayor. I was just going to mention.
Oh, fine. In which case, if everyone else can see it, I can see it on paper. So that's fine. Apologies, Tom. Carry on.
Okay, I've gone back to Plan A, so I'm hoping Plan A is not spoiled. If not, we've got Plan B available if required. So yeah, so hopefully now everyone can see on the right-hand side is some of the advice that we go out and give on there. But this final slide is some of the prevention advice, the simple steps that we request people to follow to keep us safe as possible when visiting our wildlife and moorland. And yeah, it's very similar to what I talked about, what the causation factors we're trying to discuss with people to make sure that they do the opposite, to make sure that we don't end up with those sort of incidents. So yeah, it's about clearing up and taking your rubbish home after any sort of event, activity, picnic within that area. Make sure we observe signs and notices. We ourselves and our partners, we work together to make sure there's signage there, notifying of risk, and some of that is again about no barbecues, etc., no small fires within this area. We also ask people to follow National Trust Countryside Code, which, apologies, I should have put the hyperlink to that, but I can add that if you want to add that to the site. That might be of assistance.
Yes, please. Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah, once again, it's the litter and the glass. Because not only can it hurt the wildlife and people, it also has been seen on multiple occasions to reflect the sun and start fires. The other one's about obviously cigarettes and the small fires, and yeah, please don't be tempted to do so, and only barbecue in authorised areas where it's safe to do so. And that is sorry.
If people don't, this is advice presumably. If people don't follow this advice, at what point would someone potentially be causing committing a kind of criminal activity?
Yes, so we can, where we see people undertaking acts such as, deliberate fire setting, we report that into the police, not only at the time, but then we feed in through our community safety partnerships to the neighbourhood policing teams. That can then, we can increase the patrols, supportive controls, joint patrols, working with the police to try and stop people doing that, because unfortunately, it can be an act of arson, which is a criminal offence.
Exactly. And just in terms of the kind of vulnerable population rather than the wider public, how would they be supported if there was a wildfire, in a rural community, but close to where some people might be living who might be vulnerable?
Yeah, I'll just stop sharing if that's okay, Deputy Mayor, and I'll answer that question. Yeah, so if we were to have an incident, because once again, working in conjunction with the local resilience forum, we have got a list within that team of vulnerable people. So we know whether it be a wildfire or a flood, we know which areas, which people that have got the vulnerabilities, and we can attend to their needs first of all. So we that has been used on different occasions, predominantly on the flood, but it is available and accessible for wildfire.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Tom. Apologies for my technical glitches, which I think maybe were just my technical glitches, so apologies for that.
No, it's fine. Told me to make sure
as long as it's been recorded, then I'm not concerned. Okay, that concludes the wildfire thematic presentation for today's meeting, and we're just going to turn to the spotlight section, which is basically an opportunity for me to raise any other issues that the public might be raising with me. And one of those was just around, I know that the service is developing its new community risk management plan that will set out how resources are going to be managed over the next few years. I just wondered what the engagement plan was for that, and whether someone could say a little bit more about how the public could be involved in what a community risk management plan is and what their opinion on it might be.
Deputy Mayor, just before we answer that, I can still see the slide. I don't know if Tom, is that still being shared? Could we close that, please?
I can't see it.
Cracky, I can't see anybody. I'm happy to give an answer, but Damien is currently leading on this, so I'll let him just provide the initial detail and I'll close on that.
Thank you. Damien?
You're on mute, Damien, I think.
Cracky, we are struggling with the tech today.
We are. This is normally, it must be the heat. It's normally very straightforward.
I gave a great response there as well, Deputy Mayor, so apologies.
Was it succinct?
Slightly. Yeah, the community risk management plan, the national framework sets out that each fire and rescue service has to do an assessment of risk. For North Yorkshire, we call that our community risk profile. That's the assessment of risk. And then within the community risk management plan, we set out how, as an organisation, we're going to mitigate that risk through prevention, protection, response, resilience. It also does ask for us to talk about other strategic priorities that we set out to improve as an organisation. That has currently been drafted. The community risk profile has now been finalised. The consultation for that will be coming out to members of the public, and we will engage with staff and representative bodies, but the public consultation is due to be published on the 7th of July. That will be open for 8 weeks. There is a consultation document that sets out all our approach and an appendices, and then there are a number of questions that are being developed online which will allow us to receive information back from the public to consider any views that they have with regards our community risk management plan. This is in addition to our previous consultation, or the Mayor's previous consultation around the fire and rescue plan. So the CRMP tries to address all of the priorities that were set out in that fire and rescue plan, and hopefully the public will see there's a matrix that shows all our areas of focus that we're going to look at over the next 4 years, how they address the priorities that were consulted upon by the Mayor previously.
Brilliant. Thank you, Damien. That's helpful. And we're anticipating that coming out in the next few weeks. Is that right?
That's correct. So the consultation will go live on the 7th of July.
Okay, so that's the point at which the public will know what you're consulting on, but will also be able to feed in their own views on those issues and the wider risk management that the service is overseeing.
That's correct,
right?
and we welcome as much information and feedback from the public as we possibly can get to ensure that the CRMP is reflective not only of the priorities we set out as an organisation, but address the priorities that the public see as most important.
Great, thank you. And does anyone else want to come in on the community risk management plan before I move on to my last other issue that I just quickly wanted to raise?
Deputy Mayor, if I may, just I think it's a great opportunity that we've now been able to present to the public. The fire and rescue plan, which you consulted upon, and then we've had the opportunity within that plan to set the public, yours and the public's priorities for the service. Ultimately, this forms part of our accountability to you and to the public. So when, as Damien said there, when the CRMP comes out, I'd urge everybody to have your say, have your direction, and then help us face the next part and the next place for the organisation that you want to see us delivering. Because once again, that is our accountability and that's our transparency with the public. We're open to it and we're hoping everybody will engage. Thank you.
Brilliant, thank you. And my final question was we did touch on it earlier, but I just wanted to pick it up specifically. When we were talking about wildfires and we were talking about the links in with the police, and Tom during his presentation said that things would be reported if someone was deliberately thought to be starting fires, that it would automatically be reported through to the police. I just wanted clarification around how that works in a more urban setting, whether in some of the parks in towns and cities, if people have any suspected arsons, how that process works, and how we just ensure that the data that perhaps the fire service has around turnouts that they've had to small fires in parks, for example, that also tallies with the reports to the police around suspected arson.
I could pick that up if you want, Deputy Mayor. So yeah, so yes, if there's a deliberate fire, that's reported through control rooms. So if our response deems that to be a deliberate, that then gets reported through to the control rooms. Where we see an area where we're seeing considerable amounts of, that's where our prevention watch managers, we've got one for the northwest and one for the southeast, they look at all the incident logs, start capturing that. That's when it gets fed into the community safety partnerships and neighbourhood policing teams. So we've had a recent spike or small spike in and around a certain area, and on the back of that has then instigated a multi-agency sort of arson reduction to stop those deliberate fires happening in those areas, increased patrols, education pieces. We've been accessing the schools in the surrounding areas, demonstrating and engaging on those risks caused by setting those sort of fires. And we have seen a little bit of a reduction on that now in those areas. So it does seem to work where we do instigate that, and we can always put that into place no matter which area where we see those sort of prolonged or patterns starting to happen.
Okay, that's great. That's very reassuring. Thank you. And I think because we've dealt with the we've already dealt with the inspection report. So Tom, sorry if you missed that. It was great. You all did. You're all brilliant. Just the final section that we have is, I think we've got public questions. I think we only have one public question this time, which is from Jason in York about the water infrastructure. Now, there's a risk I'm not going to be able to see this because it's not been loading for me. So I will just read out. I don't know whether it's on the screen or not. If anyone can just confirm whether the question is on the screen, because I can't see it.
Yes, it's
I'm
on
just
the
going to
screen.
Okay, thank you, Fiona. I'll just read it. I can't see it, but I'll just read it out. In York, over the last month or two, we have seen numbers of problems with water infrastructure, pipes bursting, unplanned waterworks, streets flooded. How much does this unpredictability cause challenges to fire and rescue services, and to what extent does any of it challenge infrastructure, increase the risk of worse consequence if we have general flooding from heavy rain? Feels like it might be more of a question for water and Yorkshire Water, but I don't know whether from a fire and rescue perspective there's anything you want to say around those challenges, because I think that the service does turn out to some of those flooding challenges.
I'll happily take that question.
Thank you.
Sorry, I am paraphrasing my mind because I can't see the question on the screen. So in terms of when burst pipes are an unplanned event. So ultimately, if we are already at an incident and we are firefighting or other rescue efforts there, should the pipes burst, then the firefighters, there's two things we can do here. One is that we would contact the water undertakers, i.e. Yorkshire Water, and we can ask them to increase the water flow into the area at the same time as they are called out to repair that, which allows us to find other hydrants in the area that may not be connected to that main, and we can use that water for firefighting. Ultimately, we always get the water that we would always get the water that we need, and we do have resilience arrangements in place. And this, of course, does include if we had to, we can extract water from the river or other open water sources for that firefighting, not just from the hydrants in there. And in response to what I think you said around flooding, this is part of the training that we undertake. And when we receive recognition, there are planning events when we know there is the potential for a lot of rain, and the impact that will have on the rivers and the tributaries around York or within North Yorkshire. The crews are always stood up into there. We make sure we have the appliances and the equipment available. We make sure, as Damien said, with specialist advisors on a national level, there are flood advisors and TAC advisors, which are then called in to help us or assist us alongside specialist resources where required from services. So ultimately, if these events do occur, sometimes if we are firefighting, it does happen where we have a burst. We ultimately go and find water from other sources. We make sure the undertakers are making the immediate repair, but we always, achieve the points that we are doing the rescues or putting the fire out. We always have that resilience in there.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. That's very reassuring. So that is the end of the public questions for the meeting today. Before I close, I'll just confirm the dates of the next meeting. So the next online public meeting is on Tuesday, the 15th of July, which will be with North Yorkshire Police. And it will focus on road safety as its kind of spotlight area as part of the Mayor's Road Safety Month, which is taking place in July. And that will be alongside the usual performance data that we look at in that meeting. And then for the North Yorkshire Fire and Rescue Service, the next meeting is on the 18th of September, where we'll be looking at the data and the spotlight issue as well. But thank you everyone for attending. Apologies for the technical problems that we've had today. Hopefully it's not affected the recording that will be going up online. The presentations are all available for people who want to see them. And if you've got any questions off the back of those presentations, please feel free to contact the office at any time with any of those queries. But in the meantime, thank you everyone for your time and your input this afternoon, and I will close the meeting.
Thank you. Thanks, Deputy Mayor.